Well, welcome to this Pixels Plays breakdown of why the Mazerunner puzzle from the Atlantic Age is good, actually. So first we gotta start in optional space here within the 2021 remake, where we get the rotation of simulator. Now, I will freely admit that it is a little strange that one of the key elements of solving the puzzle in the Atlantic Age actually exists in the Mechanical Age. But the fact of the matter is that this is not essential. This is something that can give you a leg up on figuring out how the puzzle works. So this is teaching you a mechanic that is also very much essential to this age, which is how to operate the rotation. So like shows you kind of, well, shows you the sound, which in this case is a cowbell for south. I'm trusting that this is not actually one of the randomly generated things, because I'm planning on going to the original just because it best demonstrates the design. So forgive me while I'm fiddling around with this a little bit. Okay, so the cowbell sound is south. There's an exhaust sound for east. Okay, yeah, I gotta loosen the brakes here. North is a clink sound. And west is a spin sound. So now we're going to cut to a little bit later when we go and visit the Atlantic Age. So first we're going to start with the worst puzzle, in my opinion, in MYST, which is made a little bit better by by a feature that's somewhat hidden called displaying gameplay context subtitles. This allows you to actually see the names of the notes on the keyboard. So when you play the notes as indicated, which are C1, C2, wait, that's not it, D sharp 2, F1, and A0 flat, if I understand the actual, I'm not sure about the symbols, but I know there's like flat and sharp notes. I think that's actually the sharp symbol, but when you go down the board, I think it's known as a flat. It's just, I don't think they have enough programming to, So anyway, I did several takes because I apparently didn't properly note which notes were flat and or sharp and not, but I got it right now. Now, I'm not only showing this to give some context as to what I feel is the worst puzzle in the game, but because it ties in very well to the main theme of a Atlantic Age, which is sound. Pretty much every puzzle in the Atlantic Age relates to sound, and as such, I'm going to do a semi-full, although relatively casual walkthrough of the age. we're actually going to kind of skip past some of it. I'm just going to kind of describe it because I already have a solution written down. But around the edge, we have these different spots where sounds are being recorded. So we have floating water indicated by a symbol here. We have a page we can pick up, but we're not going to do that. Sound of running water. Sound of lava rumbling within a fissure. Also, we get to see the symbol for illuminated if we press a button. We have a broken clock. Some ethereal crystals. And last but not least, if I can actually get down there, wind blowing. Now, we go down a little hatch right there and go to these satellites, and when we point them at each of the sounds, and if we point them correctly, we push a button and get the order that the sounds need to be played to unlock this door. And I actually kind of like the dial here because it once again we got the context clues. Instead of a slider, it's just a bunch of buttons and a it's probably the wind sound, actually. There we go, the wind sound. It's called Tunnel in this version. From the website I found this on. Then the clock. A loopy sound. That should be the sound that gets us into here. Where we find our absolute favorite puzzle in the game, the Mazerunner. So I'm going to be consulting a guide just to but I need to close the door first. Never forget to close the door. There we go. I'm using the map just to help me illustrate. I don't know, maybe I'll download it and overlay it somehow. I don't know. I'll if I'm feeling ambitious, but I probably won't. So here our starting point. We only have one direction to go. And actually, it tells us right away the clink sound, which is the exact same sound that we heard in the mechanical age. Now you'll also notice that if we rotate the runner, it is still the same sound. I think that illustrates it pretty well. The only complaint I can really have is that this is a little clunky, having to like rotate each direction. So we only have one direction to go from here. Now, I will admit that it's a little iffy that we don't actually hear the sound right away, but it's a big red button in the middle of things, and it's directly underneath the compass in this version, at least. So you can kind of it's also circular, much like the compass is circular. So it's pretty clear, at least in this version. So they made some improvements to the interface to like really help emphasize what's going on. But the layout itself is still the same. So we go to our first junction here. Now our first junction features a dead end straight ahead, and dead ends pretty much all around, except for one direction. Well, two directions. The direction that we came from, which is south, and another direction, west. You also notice it's playing spin sound, which is the exact same sound that we heard when we rotated the fortress rotation in mechanical age to the west. So now at this point even if we didn't, and let's just at this point divorce ourselves from the mechanical age, because who knows, maybe we're really smart, or there's a fair chance that we saw the rocket ship and we're like, we're going there first, and then we're like really musically inclined, or we're playing this version where we can and are aware of the subtitle option. So we go here, we solve some puzzles, and we get to the main Mazerunner. We have no idea what any of these sounds mean. Well, from the very first space, we may have identified north. We may not have. But here we can fairly easily identify west. Now, we may not have, there's a chance that we may not have really completely caught on to it, but when we get to each junction, we hear a sound. And in the very first junction, you can only go north. And you can press this button to hear the sound. If you're in MYST, you probably are going to learn fairly quickly that it's okay to push buttons and levers and experiment with controls. This game is fairly safe. It's never going to actually punish you for trying things. So it's teaching us. And this is the teach and test method, which is very famous was made famous by the Portal games in particular, as well as a lot of the Half-Life games, particularly Half-Life 2. So let's go west. This takes us to yet another junction, which has, once again, in case we didn't notice it in the very start node, we hear it automatically here. So if we didn't figure out the sound from north right away, we'll figure it out here. And once again, we only have one way forward and one way back. Of course, the way forward is north. I'm not going to really bother with rotating the runner all the way around to fully make you confirm that. That's the advantage of having the map in front of me. So let's head north. So now we know, or should probably know, and recognize two of the sounds, and hopefully be taking notes. Now, granted, this is tricky in the VR version, but let's just set that aside. That's a kind of an all-around problem, and it's not the version of the game we're playing right now. So now, this is probably the very first time that we have a direction that is straight ahead of us. And it is, as we can see, to the north. And we're hearing an unfamiliar sound. If we haven't, again, we're divorcing ourselves from the mechanical age. I was really illustrating by showing the mechanical age first, is that there is a way to learn about these sounds earlier and get a leg up. The point I'm trying to make here is that we don't really need that. If we're observant and keep proper notes, we can figure things out. And even if we aren't, there's other things. So, right now we only know the sounds for north and west. So how do we tell what the exhaust sound indicates? Well, let's actually turn west. Well, what do you know? We can't go west. So it must be east. And now we know 3 of the sounds, which means that through further process of elimination, when we encounter an unfamiliar sound, we will know exactly what it is. But let's actually divorce ourselves even further from what we think we know. Let's say that we haven't really figured it out yet, and we were like, oh, let's just keep on going straight ahead. Let's keep exploring and see what happens. We are immediately faced with 2 things. One being the very first dead end you can actually encounter in this entire thing. 2 is our 4th sound, the cowbell, which allows us to learn south. So even if we didn't use the product, so now we actually have learned something. We have learned something through failure. And that is what is kind of brilliant and, as Rand Miller would call it, elegant about the design of the Mazerunner. Is that even when we fail, we learn something, or have a chance to learn something. We can also literally backtrack, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to actually manually rotate our way back. Also, there is literally only one way back. That is actually kind of the beauty of a dead end. So you might realize, I can literally only go south from here. and the cowbell sound plays no matter where I'm facing. So you can pretty quickly rule out that the sounds are not meant to orient you. I mean, granted, the fact that you already have a compass doesn't seems to suggest that the sounds aren't meant to show you which direction you're pointing. I'm not sure why he even had that impression when I first played through this myself. I have the exhaust sound, which is telling us that we should face east. Takes us to another node with the exact same sound. Now, once again, there is only one dead end, and it is an immediate dead end. So let's just keep on going forward. Now, I guess I could convince you that this is actually really good. But, now here, if we're learning as we go, and we didn't get that dead end, we will actually, this will be our opportunity to learn the final sound that we need to really keep a note of, which is the cowbell, which indicates south. Now, the only other direction we can go is northeast. The very first instance of of two things, actually. A diagonal path actually three things. A diagonal path, a winding path, which reorients our compass, so that we have to pay attention and not rely on the idea. Actually, no, this introduces us to five things. So, okay, this introduces us to diagonal paths, one. The sound that indicates the combinations of sounds which indicate a diagonal path to move where we should be going forward. Let's see, a winding path which reorients our compass. And actually, I think it is four things. In fact, wait, okay. Our very first two-stage dead end. So our dead ends are starting to really escalate here. So once again, we hear that cowbell sound. This game definitely has a fever because it really needs more cowbell. So again, we're actually learning quite a bit by failing. We're having the soft clue reintroduced to us, and incidentally, south is the direction we need to go that we should have gone originally. And we also hear the exhaust and cowbell sounds, which tell us that we should be heading southeast. So now we've really learned everything we need to know, and pay attention to successfully complete the maze. But it's not quite over yet. And for one, what if we didn't make the mistake? What if we're learning as we go and we've already figured out that we should not head northeast, that we should be heading southeast? Or south, I mean. What am I talking about? South, okay. So what if we just head south? So once again, we just keep on going straight to continue. We have a path to the east, which is another two-stage dead end, which also contains a diagonal leading to the dead end. So you can potentially, even if you screw up here for whatever reason, you'll once again, at the very end of it, you'll learn about or relearn the diagonal mechanic. But again, we're not going to make mistakes every turn that we can make a mistake. In fact, at this point, I'm probably not going to really demonstrate the mistakes, although there is an escalation of the consequences for mistakes that I will point out as we go. I just won't illustrate it, because there's not really too much of a point to it at this point. So this is the sound for west. And one of the very first of the first two sounds that we've identified. So here, if we've been doing everything correctly, will be the first time we encounter a winding path. And at the end of the winding path is our very first diagonal. So here is another brilliant thing. This is the first time, if we've been learning as we go, and correctly learning as we go, this will be the first time that we encounter a combination of sounds. Now, this combination of sounds is the spin and the cowbell. So it's pointing us to the southwest. Now, we'll be rotating all the way again. The only two directions we can go are back and southwest. And I guess you could just take my word for it at this point. So we can only go back north. Now, it's a little tricky because we did, turn around, but yeah, we could, at this point, from this node, we can only go southwest. So you'll figure out very quickly that that combination of sounds makes southwest, and you'll also be able to deduce, hopefully, at this point, that the combinations of sounds are combinations of the two sounds oriented with the cardinal directions. So if you figure out what those two sounds are, then you can basically figure out which way you're supposed to go when where you're supposed to go is in fact a diagonal. Now this is the first instance where we have more than one dead end. It's technically a second one because back before the curve, there was a path that led to a branching path that had multiple dead ends. So we're getting to a point where you can start to easily get lost, but you should have picked up enough cues and have enough opportunities to learn that you're probably going to be avoiding those dead ends. This one just has two straightforward dead ends, where you'll immediately learn that you messed up, and then turn around, get back on track. So, if you're not convinced yet, oh, the brilliance, you can, stop watching here, like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. But we're just gonna keep on going for the fun of it, and to um, just have me talk about, I guess, how many dead ends there are in each of the subsequent junctions. Like, once again, I'm not going to be exploring any of them, but I'm just going to talk about them because why not? Let's actually go through the entire maze run. That's just a spin sound. I may have actually gotten to a dead end. I don't know. I may have accidentally gotten myself to a dead end. Well, this spin sounds west. Okay, I think I just this one has two dead ends. Um. Okay, this has two dead ends. I was getting ahead of myself a bit. Or not. Okay, the spin sound and then the clink sound, that means I need to go. Okay, maybe this is note 11. Are there like notes that are just like extra here? I don't know. Um, okay, so this is note 11, or should be note 11. I don't know if my map is inaccurate or what, but this note should have one direct dead end and one dead end that branches in two ways. And this is actually the most complex of the dead end scenarios you can get. Actually, from here it gets um, back down to just one branching dead end per node, which is more than enough. And again, you should have learned enough by this point that it's just not going to be a problem because you're going to know everything. You're going to know each of the diagonal sounds as well as sound combinations. It's a matter of like identifying what they are, which is easier with the sound context clues on, I will admit. But it's presented in a actually there are in both speakers. It might have been a little better if one was in like the left speaker and one was in the right speaker, so that you get like a polysymphonic thing. But then again, that might be a little bad for people who maybe are deaf in one ear. So it kind of makes sense that they need to be divided. They might be a little bit like arranged a little bit to the left and right to sort of help differentiate them a little more. I don't know. I don't really care. It's pretty clear to me that like it is the clink and the spin sound. You know, you don't need to be a musician to parse out the sounds. I'm not sure what. I mean, I've already talked about what the next two junctions are going to be like. So, in terms of the dead end, you do like each of these turns is a different turn. Like the very first diagonal turn is southwest. The next diagonal turn is northwest. This one is northeast. Then the next one, the final one is well, the penultimate one is just north, and then it curves again. But then the okay, so here we need to go northeast. I mean, you don't actually have to turn all that much. It feels like, again, if you're doing it right, you don't need to turn that much. So now you have the clink sound, which means we need to turn north. And maybe we're turning in the wrong direction. Okay. You see, if we're doing it right, like I said. Okay, so what actually is second to last one? I don't know. Okay, this is the coming into the. So we get the exhaust sound and cowbell sound. Which means we need to go southeast and give that just one turn. This is completely different from my map. Okay. I don't know if they accidentally threw in some procedural generation in here, or if this is a map based upon someone else's randomly generated map. In which case, it may just procedurally generate like many of the. Well, anyway, I believe we're actually at the end now. So it's possible to only procedurally generate like the last few steps of the maze. I had to test that, but it actually would be fairly clever. Some of this person's own like map that he made, which is weird that he made it so elaborate, is uh but anyway, it still makes my point. Like there are more and more dead ends, more and more elaborate dead ends as you progress. And you get some like beautiful vistas here. And I think toward the end you only have like one way you can go. So like you get a little bit of a reprieve. And then you have like what I'm assuming is like you're getting some scenery that like reflects like the crystals and fissures and such. And there you have it. So there's a bunch of things you can do. There's the likes, the comments, the subscribing. There's the etc., etc., etc. There's a Minecraft Club you can check out. There's a Patreon where you can support me. I plan on eventually doing kind of in-depth, deep dive reviews into Riven, Mist Free, probably Uru, which I haven't really played a whole lot of Uru. So I'm actually kind of interested in trying to play, especially diving into it and actually be able to do it relatively blind. May be kind of fun. Although, like 3 and 4, I'm kind of not as familiar with either, so I can kind of have a bit of fun with those. Well, I never actually beaten 4, and I'm not sure if I would on a review run either, because there's a particular puzzle that seems to require reflexes that I may not quite have. But we'll see when we get to it. Right now, I am live streaming Mass Effect. But I think once I'm finished with Mass Effect 2, I might take a little break from Mass Effect and do Ribbon. If you'd like to see that, you can like the video. You can comment and tell me that you'd like to see me do a review run of Ribbon. Maybe suggest another puzzle which some people lament that I could explain why it's good. Um, or something where I can really dig deep into why it's bad. Um, in any case, doesn't matter what you do, because if you've gotten this far, or if you've watched any of this at all whatsoever, I thank you for watching. And until next time, sayonara.